and Robbo.
Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight, and David Robinson.
Ben, Rob and Robbo. News, reviews, entertainment too. It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Here's Rob McKnight.
Hello and welcome to a big new week of the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. The girls are with me. Hello, boys. How are you?
Yes. Good to be with you.
I stole Aaron's joke. Aaron from Ticker refers to us as the Golden Girls. I think Amanda beside me is Sophia. I worked it out the other day. So.
She is sassy.
She is sassy. Hey, it's a really big show. Ben, how are you doing today?
A Bond villain, you know, like with my animals. This is Oscar. My partner's away at the moment, so Oscar wanted to come in and join us today.
Oh, very nice.
Beautiful. He looks like a nice little pooch.
Great.
I'm gonna give him that. I mean, not put him down. Different turn of phrase.
We do have Cinta sitting beside us. Cinta's always there. The Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. She's even got the right colours. She's got the orange about her, so, you know.
What worries me with her, I hope she's not a representative of our audience because she's always asleep.
No, she's probably a representative of being part of my family, you know. So.
Oh, Rob's talking again. I'm going to go for a nap.
That's it.
Fair enough.
Hey, I said it was a big show, and I'm really so excited about today's feature guest because we have the one and only Julia Zemiro joining us today. And we just love her. She's fantastic. She's doing the new series of Julia Zemiro's home delivery. And I'm really looking forward to catching up with her a little bit later in the show. But in the meantime, let's get into our hot topics of the day. And McDonald's Australia is confident there is no danger to customers after a delivery driver tested positive for the coronavirus in Victoria. However, 12 restaurants the driver visited have been closed for deep cleaning. It's not known when these restaurants will reopen. Robbo, is this an overreaction or fair enough?
You know what? I think it's really good leadership. We speak a lot about this show, and I really like to say that when there's good, decisive leadership, I think it's great. I think we miss a lot of that, both in politics and business now, because everyone's worried about, offending someone or, doing something wrong to one person in a workforce of 5,000. So this is actually really good. The details are sketchy, though. What I worry about is a lot of McDonald's stores are franchises. Now, they already pay an exorbitant amount of money, obviously, to the McDonald's Corporation for those franchise fees. Details have been sketchy as to how long the restaurants will be closed for, and also if there's any kind of financial support from head office of McDonald's. I think that would be very important because, again, a lot of these businesses are owned by, family businesses and that kind of thing. So I think that it would be important that there is a bit of kickback there. McDonald's is great at marketing, so if that's not on the table, then if that was on the table, I'm assuming that they would have said that. So the fact that there's been no mention of that kind of makes me concerned that there isn't that much support there. Hopefully also the individual restaurants don't have to pay for the deep clean. This is thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a really expensive operation to deep clean something, but I think it's a great decision and made very quickly, decisively, and more importantly for everyone involved, the workers and the customers.
Ben, you look like someone who eats a lot of McDonald's.
I'm laughing because it's not true.
I eat a lot of McDonald's. The thing is, Ben, I like Robbo, I like the leadership. This gives me a lot of faith in the product that when something goes wrong, they are sorting it because McDonald's has remained open during this pandemic. They've been doing it as a takeaway service. I'm actually happy that they're taking this action. What about you?
Yeah, I think that they did the right thing because no one wants them to say, "Would you like COVID-19 with your burger?" So, I mean, you could upsell me maybe a cheeseburger or you could upsell me a shake, but I don't think I want the virus. At the end of the day, I think it's just a recognizable brand doing the right thing by the customers. So, maybe it was a bit of an extreme result, but look, I think the people that are buying McDonald's from that area will respect the fact that McDonald's has done the right thing, and hopefully, like a lot of Australians, we will invest in the businesses that we buy from when this whole thing blows over.
and especially when they're doing the right thing and not putting people at risk. Although, having said that, I'm glad the McDonald's around the corner from me's open today. I'm now starting to really feel like that. I've got the shape of the head there. I might just have to pop out for a bit, Manda. All right. It's been revealed that pop princess Kylie Minogue was paid almost $1 million for her work on a now paused tourism campaign. News Corp is reporting that Ms. Minogue pocketed the money last year, but due to a mixture of the devastating bushfires and, of course, the global pandemic, it was only on air for 10 days. Let's have a look at the ad in case you missed it.
This year's been tough and confusing, but progress is moving.
Well, a glacial pace. Sorry.
But all of Australia loves you, and we'll never judge you.
You just need some space. Because negotiating tricky trade deals is a shocker.
But look, there's a quokka, and that's what you need. A quokka is really what you need. Don't bite your nails to the cuticles. And with impressive marsupials.
Helping a mate is a national
trait in Australia. See you soon then, yeah?
It's one of the few Australian tourism ads that I like. Ben, that's a lot of money. Should she give it back the same way Scott Cam did?
What do you mean? She gave $500,000 back into the Red Cross charity straight away. Like a lot of Australian icons, they were very quick to dig into their pockets and give that money back. I mean, did you want the money to go to somewhere specific? Because I think she recognised that she got a pretty good payday, and then she did the right thing by the country. So I don't necessarily see that there's a big issue here.
Let me be very clear. I mean, not only do I love Kylie Minogue, but
I bet you do.
but I actually have no problem here. There is a call on social media, and there's a question being raised about whether she should give the money back because the campaign didn't run. But Robbo, she did the work. She did everything expected of her. This is not her fault. And whether she gave money or not to the Red Cross during the bushfires, to me, has nothing to do with it. She signed a contract. She did her work. She deserves that money.
The difference is people are, as you mentioned there, Rob, they're comparing it to Scott Cam. Now, the difference is Scott Cam had done full social media posts and a few trips to TAFEs, and that was it. And he was due to do much, much more, but that was cancelled. That's the difference. Kylie, as you rightly say, did her work, shot the commercial, recorded the song, and that was great. This is the thing. No, I don't think she should have to give any money back. Ben rightly said that she did also give $500,000 to the bushfire appeal, which was great as well. But I just think that this is just people going after someone. She did her job, and that was okay. The other thing is it's been viewed 30 million times, which equates to $50 million worth of advertising. They only paid $15 million for the entire campaign. I think she's also brought the money home with her as well. So I think she's done her job and then some. I don't think that giving back her $935,000 is appropriate or is really needed.
I agree. Now,
you know what's interesting, Rob, though? Just I was going to quickly say, Kylie Minogue is the biggest sufferer of tall poppy syndrome in this country. Ever since the 80s, I don't know what our issue is with her, but she can't do anything right. And as soon as the smallest thing could be taken in a different direction, we're so quick to say, oh, Kylie, you're terrible. You know what? She's an amazing Australian. She has done so much for this country. And I think that we need to turn that around. I think people like Nicole Kidman and Kylie Minogue are amazing exports for us. And here in our country, we should be supporting them, not tearing them down.
Look, I do agree with you. Although I don't think Kylie is in that position. I really can't see a lot of people thinking she wasn't worth it. I mean, people may question the $1 million paycheck for filming the commercial, but that's the only way you get someone like her to take part in that. I have no problem. On a broader side, do we think this was a good commercial?
Loved it. It was amazing.
Ben,
I didn't know what a quokka was.
Robbo, what about you?
I like this song, but I'm so petty. At the end when she goes, so see you soon. Yeah? I hate it when people say yeah at the end of a sentence.
Yeah.
So I really don't like this. Yeah?
It's interesting. I mean, I did like the "Where the Bloody Hell Are You" campaign, but sometimes Tourism Australia goes off the deep end and ignores.
We finally found someone who liked that promotion. That was a bloody terrible promotion.
No, look how much media attention that got around the world. Lara Binkle became an international star because of that commercial. And the fact is, it created noise. Whereas sometimes we get these commercials from Tourism Australia that just, you look at that and go, oh, great. They've just spent, millions of dollars flying a crew around Australia to these obscure places tourists just don't go. You know, there are things about our country that people are drawn to. I mean, the English love Uluru and Sydney Harbour. You know, I think they played a very smart game here. Kylie and Adam Hills are very well known in the UK and really made sense to use them to sell to that market. Well,
can I suggest, though, that the commercials that are made are not made for you, though, and they're not really made for any of us, Rob. They're made for an overseas audience. And, for example, Americans still think that kangaroos jump down the street, that we're all wearing Akubra hats and we're all throwing snags or in the barbie or, you know. But that's why I think those ads don't really... I think Tourism Australia has a really hard job because immediately Australians are going to look at it and go, well, this is our ad, and go, well, no, that's not it. But that's how the world perceives us, and that's how Tourism Australia has to sell.
My point is when they don't do things that play to that market, I think they did here. They played to the English market very, very well in this commercial. And Chuck Another Shrimp on the Barbie was the perfect commercial for the American market. I think it's when we get too wanky that Tourism Australia loses its focus. And I am looking at from the viewer's perception and where we're trying to get to on as a sales message. Well, let's move on. And according to Robbo, we've got two outstanding entrants vying for the Clown of the Miserable Old Bastard 2020 with video released from England. In what should have been a nice bike ride for dad and daughter, the Crampton couple, both in their mid-40s, made sure it wasn't. Have a look.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I said excuse me several times. Calm down, mate. She said excuse me. I said sorry. We didn't know where you were going to go. How long you going to be in the road?
The Cherry couple said that it was totally the 6-year-old girl's fault. Police were notified, but concluded that there was no criminal offence, just a misunderstanding between the two parties. Robbo, I already have an inkling of whose side you're on.
Well, yeah, so I wrote that intro and I just thought, as I was watching the video, I just thought, those miserable old bastards. And I thought, I don't know if this will get past here, but it obviously has. And I think we should keep this running throughout the show because I bet... I've got an inkling that there might be a few more MOBs around the world that we'll obviously crown at the end of the year on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. But this is the thing. Yes, the child ran into them. Look, you've got a 6-year-old who's making a decision about, you know, where to go. There's spatial awareness. It's a 6-year-old. She tries to go through them and it doesn't work. These MOBs, we'll keep saying so I don't have to say the word bastard again, just didn't get out of the way. They heard, excuse me. They're, you know, privileged. They're elitist. They think that they own the place. Rubbish. And then at the end, for her to walk past that crying 6-year-old girl and for him to kick the bike makes them very, very high on the MOB radar. Just
Robbo,
terrible, I think.
I could not disagree with you more. I am so over parents thinking their kids are just the absolute angels. This kid ran into them, and that's fine. That happens. I've got no blame on the 6-year-old. My problem is with the parents who are so far up their own backsides they can't see daylight. The problem here is that your kid does something wrong. Yes, you might have said, excuse me. You don't know how old these people are. Maybe they didn't hear you. And you think it's their fault. They had their back to your daughter, and you think it's their fault that your daughter ran into them. You know what? It's like these parents with prams in the supermarket. Have you ever seen them where they just barge through? And seriously, sometimes it's like bowling balls where there's a wake of people that are pins lying on the floor going, what just happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Parents are too far caring about themselves and not the general populace, that they just think, I've got a baby, I'm in the right. This father is he's the one they should go in your, what did you call your thing?
MOB.
The MOBs.
Yeah.
Miserable
He's the one that should
Mega
go in
old
there
bastard?
because he's the one. And then he called the police. I mean, for God's sake, accidents happen. We live in this nanny state, pardon the pun, where people go, oh, my daughter ran into you, I'm going to call the police on you. Come on. I had this same thing happen. My daughter, a few years ago, we were in the park and she ran off, right? So we're all looking for her. And like, seriously, it was this walking track. So we're all splitting up trying to find her. And you know what happened? I found her walking with a family and they had called the police. And we had been missing for about 3 to 5 minutes. And they had called the police, and I literally had to talk to the police, and I'm like, it was a kid that ran off for a few minutes. Yeah, it's not great, but, you know, she's that kind of kid where she runs off, and you're now calling the police on me because I lost her for 3 minutes. Remember when kids used to run off for hours? I mean, she was like six
Rob,
at
I'm
the
so
time.
sorry. Rob, yeah, I'm just going to break in.
We've run out of time
Breaking news
today.
now. We've now got a extra person who's going for the miserable old bastard award. He's overtaking the two women, the couple, in Britain there, and it is now Rob McKnight, who is the leader on the miserable old bastard tally board. Back
Sorry,
to you, Rob.
Ben, am I wrong?
Look, I got so confused. I had no idea what you're talking about towards the end. I thought I'd gone to visit my grandfather, and he just recycled the same storyline. See, what we didn't see in that video was I reckon that child is the devil, and that child literally drove it like something from Omen, like this possessed child attacked these old people, and, you know, it's really sad.
Robbo, just explain to me, and I know I did go on a major rant there, sorry about that, but I really have an issue with parents who just think the world owes them everything because they've had offspring. I have never behaved like that as a parent, and I have 3 kids. Robbo, why are these people that the kid ran into in the wrong?
No, I take your point entirely. I really do. And I understand what you're saying about parents and about prams and things like that. What I find a big problem here, and what I thought that they were miserable old bastards, was because if a kid ran into me like that and I didn't hear them and they ran into me, my first reaction, honestly, would be, oh, sorry, are you okay? Sorry. The fact that it was immediately like, oh, well, you know, we're working on this path and it's her fault and she ran into me. Yes, she ran into you. She's a 6-year-old girl. So how about you don't walk over the crying girl? You don't kick the bike like a child. I would say that his mental capacity is the age of a 3-year-old. Yes. No, but why wouldn't you just turn around and say, I'm sorry? Like, I'm sorry to the little girl. Sorry,
you saw the
move on.
reaction. As soon as the kid ran into them, they're like, oh my God, what's going on? And then they started copying abuse from the parent. And that's immediately what changes you from being a concerned citizen into defender of yourself. You know, that parent it was almost like he was trying to get the kid to go into them. I said, excuse me, you should have cleared a path. Moses parting the sea because my daughter's coming through. Spare me. Let's move on. And a new survey has found that many of us turn a blind eye to crime and suspicious behaviour. Not when it's painful parents, I tell you, though. Ahead of today's National Crime Stoppers Day, the organisation conducted a survey of over 2,000 people. Almost half of the respondents said they wouldn't bother reporting to the authorities, but instead would share information with family and friends. The chair of Crime Stoppers, Diana Forrester, said that no info is too insignificant to report. Ben, surely we shouldn't be reporting every lone figure walking down the street at night, should we?
Well, I hate those people that report on everything, you know, like,
So do I, obviously.
I'm peering through the window at my neighbours and I'm complaining. Like, those people need to get a life. Like, you know, close the blinds and get on with your day. But I will say, though, sometimes people do the wrong thing and no one does anything, and that also can be quite shocking. I think that people just need to use their brains on what they've seen and see whether it's worth reporting. But I think any way in either extreme seems to bother me. But I guess, you know, she's got a point in some regards. I mean, if everyone turned a blind eye, it wouldn't be great.
Okay, well, Robbo is looking at some breaking news coming through, which we are going to bring you with Molk, because we are hearing there are some redundancies at 10. 10 Daily, 10's much vaunted news website, is closing on Friday. Look, we are going to cover this with Molk. Molk is talking TV today. Robbo is also very much across this story, so we will get the details together and bring that to you. But Robbo, on the topic we're talking about, do you think it's okay to ignore petty crime?
No, look, I don't think it is. This is the problem. I get why people don't want to get involved. There's this idea of if I get involved, maybe I'll be targeted, or, I'm not giving them what they need. I'm going to be taking up the police's time, which is not true. There was a story in Melbourne just recently where a woman was crying out for help and no one went to her aid. And unfortunately, she did lose her life in a domestic violence situation, which was just awful. But there's also this idea that someone else will make the call or someone else would do this. I think that it's really important. I love that they've commissioned this on National Crime Stoppers Day, which is today. I love that we're thinking about this. Do you need to report every lone figure in the dark? No, I don't think so. That's where it kind of comes into it. But if you actually see someone, near a house that shouldn't be or doesn't look like that they should be, tampering with that window, absolutely. Or if you were in the middle of some kind of, where you went to a murder scene or something like that, and you remember seeing just beforehand a man in a yellow raincoat or something, then yes, call them up, because that might be the one link that they need. But, we can't be surprised. We are a nation of convicts, so we don't want to, rat on each other.
Robbo, I want to go back to this breaking news because it's a very big deal in the television industry. You are across it. What can you tell me about the redundancies at 10 at the moment?
Well, Beverly McGarvey, the Chief Programming Officer and now the Vice President of CBS Viacom in Australia and New Zealand, has just sent out an email to staff saying that, long-winded, of course, saying that the landscape has changed and things like that, and there will be some redundancies. No idea exactly what departments will be targeted, but we do know right now, breaking news is that 10 Daily will cease operating on Friday. Now, that is a large amount of people. You're talking video editors, writers, journalists, producers, graphic designers. It's a huge operation. Remember, 10 Daily was only really launched, I think, a couple of years ago. This is a massive blow to the media here in Australia. What we're going to find is that 9 Honey will still operate. I believe 7 has their own website, but 10 Daily will no longer, Network 10 will no longer have that extra website to launch content and to break stories and to kind of really get into that youth market that everyone wants to do. These are really troubling times, as we always hear about the media. No one knows, as I mentioned before, which departments will be targeted with these redundancies. But considering what the pandemic has done to media and to media buying, you could expect that it will probably be quite the bloodbath. Our thoughts and prayers really are with everyone at Network 10. Rob, you and I have a lot of friends still there and a lot of people that we admire, and we really wish them all the best, because this is not great. What I also think is we can expect this to happen across 7 and 9 as well. It's only a matter of time.
What's interesting about this, Robbo, is that I know that 10 Daily was a pet project of Beverly McGarvey. So the fact that they're having to close that down is huge news, and would be surprising to the market, especially not that 10 is part of the ASX anymore, because it's now owned by Viacom CBS as a private company, or within the CBS Viacom company. So it's interesting that we all thought there was money to burn at 10, but there obviously isn't.
There really isn't, and that's the thing. What I think we're seeing is, normally in television, as you know, Rob, you find out that you're gone on the day that you're gone. I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, because it was a pet project of Bev's. They've allowed them to have, essentially 4 days' notice that they're going to be closing, which I think is quite good. But I think very rare in any kind of media that you get that much lead, or that much head time telling you that you're going to be out of work. This is really tragic for everyone at 10. And now obviously the axe is looming, and you and I both worked at networks before when the axe looms, and it sends everyone's morale goes down. It's really tough. And what I hope they can do, and TV has never learnt from this, no media has ever learnt from this, but if you're able to, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, if you're able to swing the axe as quickly as possible, that just helps everyone, as opposed to having this really massive dark cloud over, will it be me, will it be my show, will it be my department? I really hope that they learn from that and do it with as much time and as much support as possible. But, there's no guarantees, because we are dealing with the media.
Thank you for that. The other thing about that, Robbo, is that all the people at 10 who have been through so many redundancies and so many layoffs throughout the years, probably thought that had passed. 10 were in a growth state. So this is devastating news. This is huge news. But as I say, Molk is now looking into it, and he's going to bring us an updated report when we do our television section a little later in the Ben, Robbo Show. In the meantime, it's time to get some more news, and for that we cross to Aaron Young in the Ticker TV news studio. Hello, Aaron. Good morning to you. Afternoon.
News for our counterparts and friends at Channel 10. It follows, of course, what we saw last week as well, with BuzzFeed announcing that they're leaving Australia, and a lot of concerns. Even Vice Media, I've seen, have been getting rid of dozens of jobs in the US. Have made that announcement there, where this kind of next generation, the youth side of things, is starting to, well, it's just not showing. I was having a look at 10 Daily's website while you were both speaking, and there was one ad on the whole website. You've got to ask how they're paying for these things. Anyway, let's have a look at the news headlines. Support for an international inquiry into the origins of COVID-19 now increasing to more than 100 countries before Tuesday's World Health Assembly meeting. There are now 121 countries signed up to the coronavirus review petition, up from more than 60 just yesterday, a move likely to infuriate Beijing. Hold on to your hats today, because there are predictions the world's right now on the brink of an historic financial collapse. It's all about property, because banks and governments have been stimulating our economy so much we could soon see a 1930s-style melt, the issue being that property prices high, wages low. The number of new coronavirus cases in China has started to tick up as restrictions are eased in the mainland's most populous cities. The National Health Commission is reporting that 7 new cases have been announced over the past 24 hours. Shanghai also recording the first locally transmitted case since late March. Virgin Australia's administrator Deloitte under mounting pressure to cut the shortlist of bidders for the collapsed airline down to 2. We're getting word it might currently be at 4. There's concern that travellers will be wary about booking tickets over concerns that refunds, if the airline should fall into liquidation, will not be given back. It's not just Australian Airlines in trouble. Emirates is planning to cut about 30,000 jobs to reduce costs as well. The company now considering speeding up the planned retirement of its A380 fleet, another big blow to Airbus. Let's have a look at the weather map now for this Monday, the start of the week. Melbourne, sunny, a top of 19 degrees. Sydney, overcast and 21. Cloudy for Brisbane. Perth, 19 degrees. And Adelaide, overcast and 21. Let's have a look at the local share market now, which has been underway for about 8 hours. On the up, look at that, straight out of the gates. She's gone right up, pushing to new highs for the month. Resource stocks charging higher as well. Andrew Forrest's wealth, would you believe, rising to $14.5 billion. That's because China is buying our iron ore, and there is a price boom. Gold stock soaring, precious metal now hitting 7-year high. Generally, when the economy is in trouble, the stock market's in trouble, gold is where investors turn to. It's a pretty good barometer to show us exactly how it's looking. Gentlemen, back to you.
Thank you, Aaron, and we will catch up with you tomorrow as you beam live from Ticker TV, bringing us all the latest news. Appreciate it, mate. Cheers. We will also have more on the breaking news, redundancies at Channel 10. We do tend to skew a little bit towards media because we are all media people, and this is a really bad day in the media sector as this happens and we get across what the actual impact is. We have reached out to Channel 10 for a statement. We will get some more information. Our operatives at tvblackbox.com.au are now digging and getting into the information that Robbo has already given us, so we will get a complete update. In the meantime, as the coronavirus continues to disrupt television production, there are still shows launching which were made before the pandemic hit. One of those shows is the much-loved Home Delivery. Julia Zemiro is the host, and she joins us now on the Ben, Robbo Show. Hello, Julia.
Hello, Ben, Robbo.
I say them, but I'm not letting them anywhere near you, so it's just me today. You've just got Rob.
And I love that.
Julia, it must be pretty exciting to be one of the few shows delivering new content during this crisis.
But we didn't know that we would be one of the few shows that would be delivering content. That's the strange part. Yeah, look, I'm thrilled that there'll be maybe a more captive audience for the show. I'm very proud of the show, all the series that we do of home delivery. We have amazing guests and we get to do wonderful stories with them. It's been strange watching them back in the edit in the last few weeks and seeing me so close to them, hugging them in the car, which is such a big part of the show, where I drive them or they drive me in a car. We couldn't do that now. So, and also, we slightly tweaked it this year and we're asking our guests about their hope for the future. There was a sort of a context around what they thought of the future. And I was actually thinking, you know, of the environment and climate we were going. And now, of course, in light of what's happened, and, you know, we make that clear at the beginning of the series, those answers are kind of even more poignant, really.
It's interesting. Who are you really excited about in this series?
Well, I'm excited by all of them.
Oh, of course,
clearly.
of course you are.
Clearly, of course. But one of the first people we got on board was Gillian Armstrong, the Australian film director. And she directed My Brilliant Career, which for me is one of my seminal films. If you say to me, what are the top 5 films that influenced you in your life, that would be one of them.
Right.
Because there was this freckle-faced girl on screen, and even though it was a century ago, Judy Davis playing Sibylla, and a girl who just wanted to be her own thing, her own person, and it wasn't always about being married. In fact, it was about saying no to marriage. And I really identified with that as a 13-year-old in Year 7, going to see it at the Pitt Street Cinema with my friend, and I went several times. You know, I was committed, and to have her was great. The bonus with Gillian Armstrong in this series is that we went back to her home and it was exactly the same. Her father built a lot of it and put a lot of it together, and she was deeply touched by what she found, that it was all still there. And then, of course, you know, what home delivery can afford our guests so well is that you will always tell a better story when you're in that place where all those things happen to you.
That's the beauty of the show and why you get so much deeper on a personal level with your guests. Do you ever pinch yourself at who you get to interview on this series? Because the guest list, it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I try not to be a fan too much because it kind of gets in the way. And I think most people say yes, knowing what's expected of them. Because, you know, we have a lot of guests who say no. We ask some pretty high-profile, interesting people who go, I love the show, but I'm just not prepared to talk about my childhood and go there. But, you know, to get someone like Gillian, or to get someone like Louis Theroux and Brian Cox, and even though I knew them already, it's a very special thing to go back to their old stomping ground and hear them talk about quite personal stories. So, yeah, it's pretty great. Sam Neill as well was an absolute thrill. So was Maggie Beer. I could have spent a whole week with Maggie. I just loved being in her company. Yeah, it's a lovely day. And I guess there's those episodes that are a surprise. You know, Casey Chambers, we got to hear her sing in her episode, and to be out there in the desert, we built a fire and she sang a couple of songs with her dad. I mean, it was gorgeous.
In this industry, we develop a lot of friendships, and one of the friendships that I'm aware of for you is your friendship with the unstoppable Jonathan Coleman. I worked with him at Studio 10, of course, and every time your name came up, he just sings your praises, and he actually has recorded a little message for you today.
Oh!
Let's have a look.
Hello there, Jonathan Coleman here. You may remember me from such things as talking with the talking stick. I'm sorry, I'm just joking. Julia Zemiro, what a wonderful, wonderful person she is. And she gave me this lovely Glastonbury book for my birthday, which is fantastic. And whenever we were on the radio together, and if I was talking a little bit too much, heaven forbid, she would say, zipit.com. I've got the talking stick. So today, Julia, you have the talking stick. So it's over to you. Bye-bye.
I adore him.
I am one of the few people who can understand what you go through working with Jonathan Coleman.
I know. But look, can I also put it into context? You know, sometimes people kind of laugh at Jono and whatever. This guy was a groundbreaker in his time. He worked on Simon Townsend's Wonderworld.
Yes.
He worked in radio. He went to England and forged an extraordinary career in breakfast radio there. So the context for me, Rob, is a few years ago, well, nearly 10 now, I was asked, I auditioned to be his co-host. And he was still in England, I was in Sydney, and we did the audition over the airwaves. And I remember thinking, this is such a privilege to be working with you, but will we have a chemistry? We found out that we did. And he said yes. He said, she's an improviser. And he actually also said, this woman isn't a sidekick, she's a co-host.
Yes.
Not many men in the industry say that, Rob.
Yeah,
and so we come back here. And we worked together for 2 years on Gold 104 WSFM doing the afternoon shift. And that man gave me a job that afforded me a loan to be able to buy my very first flat at the age of 40, which then, of course, means that later on I can now have a house and I have no mortgage, and because that can be the lucrative nature of radio as well. And if you spend your money right and you do right things with it. And I'm forever grateful. I would not be in the position I am. I would not have the stretch of audience that I have if that wasn't included. You know, all your jobs are a conglomeration. I know Rockwiz, works into home delivery, works into Eurovision, works into the show with Jono. But it was one of my busiest times. I was doing lots of things, and he was always supportive, always delightful, and I'm in housing thanks to Jono.
It's funny seeing your reaction because he is a lovely man. I mean, he infuriated me at many times, and I've infuriated him, and I love him to death. But he really seems to have had an impact on your life, and I can see it coming through when you talk about him.
Yeah, and I mean, the infuriation you talk about is always a light-hearted one of slightly, come on, let's get on with it, you're talking too much. You know, I'm very happy to work with that kind of energy. What I will not work with, I will not be put in danger at work. I will not be harassed at work. I will not be belittled at work. That is not Jono. Jono is a very playful, very fun, hilarious guy. And like anything, my job with Brian Cox is to stop him getting too technical and bring him back on track to the audience. So if my job with Jono was similar, was let's get back on track. That seems to me my function sometimes in a duo. That's why, and home delivery slightly similar in that I'm in charge and I've got to bring them back to the story at hand and what we're doing. But Jono's a beautiful man. He's got a beautiful family. His kids are fantastic. They're grown up now, of course. Yeah, it's I think I sometimes get frustrated when we look back on people whose careers we've sort of forgotten what they started and how they started, and he's one of many. There's many people we can do that with, and I will always be his champion.
Well, Jono's going to be thrilled that we've spent so much time talking about him, but on that, all I will say is that I don't think Australians truly understand the enormous career Jono had in the UK, and I don't think there's a true appreciation of what that man achieved. So it's nice to hear that from you.
And expats all over would say that. I've had so many friends who were not as high profile as Jono, but who went overseas and did amazing comedic things and worked in theatre companies. They come back here, people don't care.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's so weird.
It's really, you've seen it too. You've seen it too, I'm sure, in all the people that you've worked with on all your different shows. And it's like, I don't know, is it an Australian thing? I don't know, maybe it is, but constantly having to go. You do know that I was doing sold out shows in theatre overseas, and they're like, yeah, we don't care.
It's crazy.
So
I hope that's changing because we are more aware of the world now. So and you've had some great opportunities, and Eurovision is one of those things that you've done and you've mentioned so many shows. I want to get your feedback on this because there's a new press release out today about Eurovision where from Ipsos that says most Australians aren't interested in the 65th Eurovision Song Contest, but half would still take pleasure in an Aussie victory. Now, Does that matter? You know, isn't Eurovision just for those that enjoy it? And if the ones that don't have to, that's the function of SBS anyway?
Well, certainly in the time I was hosting, and I'm sure this happens to Joel and Miff as the new hosts, if I had $1 for every time someone came up to me after the weekend of Eurovision went out saying how much they loved it or how much they'd never heard about it before and had just discovered it, I'd be a bazillionaire. That is not my on-the-ground experience, I have to say, and we know that people love to have parties for it. The thing, too, is that you might argue, certainly, that it is a bigger thing in Europe. Sure. Certainly. In Europe, I think that percentage would be a lot higher. We know that fans in Europe, some fans in Europe, love to hate it. They still watch it. Then there's those that love to love it. Then there's those who are absolutely fanatical about it. It's like any sport. It's like the Olympics. It's like whatever you're a fan of, there's that same kind of buzz. Now, the beauty of Eurovision, of course, is that you get a bunch of great songs out of it. I don't always think the best song wins. My favourite song doesn't always win. But that, again, is about talking about taste. You're talking about, well, why did you like that? When I was commentating over there with some of the commentators, especially the ones that I could speak French with, because there's, different countries can speak French in Europe, and I'd say to them, don't you love this song? They'd be like, no. And the arguments we would have over what was a good song. And that's great. Isn't that interesting? It's what we talk about. That's what I like to talk about. So yeah, and I think the calibre of the Australian entrants that we've put in has always been extraordinary. And each of them have done a very different... I know. And everyone has been so different and so excellent. So I say it can do something so extraordinary for an Australian performer. And, yeah, I think the Eurovision audiences will always be there. And it will always be grounded in Europe because they've got a history with it. But, again, as Europe has moved and changed, different things have moved there. Now, like anything, though, now because of COVID, I think it will have to address how big it is and how it will make it possible next year. Next year we might see, like with many things, a kind of downsizing so they can still have the event, still have a buzz in the room. But again, right now we just don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. One final question regarding Eurovision. Do you miss being over there? Do you miss covering it?
I really do. If you remember any event that comes to town, be it a sporting event or certainly an Olympics. I mean, it's not as big as that, but it's as big as that is for a weekend. Certainly, in that last grand final bit, the combination of going to an amazing city that you may not have visited before, to be engulfed in the culture and the language, to be backstage, to most of the Eurovision crew are the same. So you do remember people and you do catch up with friends. I got to use my French all the time, which I loved. But Sam and I had done 8 years, and I'm not someone who'll stay in something forever. I'm really not. I've not done it with any job, really. No. And I think it's good to reinvent yourself in some way and do something different. Now, I don't know how long home delivery is going to go for.
I was going to ask that very question off the back of that.
Well, I guess, say in comparison to live events, for example, doing Rock Wiz Live, which we still do, I don't know how compromised that's going to be. Any live show, that's going to come back last after all this COVID business. But I can see TV still going. So you're finding a way to keep working. Neighbours has gone back. They're finding a way to keep working. I can see a way we could do home delivery. My fear is that because I won't be able to be as close to them, it'll certainly affect how relaxed we are with each other. It will affect how much we open up. Then again, the kind of spectre of COVID might make people a lot more reflective on about their life. So I can imagine we could do it, maybe not with a car.
Oh, maybe with a stretched limo or something like that, or a Hummer.
Well, that's right. Yes. So I could be right one end. I love it. And the champagne in the middle and the thing. Correct. I'm going to put that into an email today.
You can have that one. Julia, thank you so much. The new series of Home Delivery starts May 20 at 8 o'clock on your ABC. Yes. Julia, we really appreciate you being on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show today.
Thank you so much. And it's so lovely to see you and lovely to see that you can still keep working. It's just keeping us all a little bit alive. So thank you.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You'll never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
And today we take you to Gay Paris, France, where it's a lovely 24 degrees. Oh, what's happened to our shop there? It's gone a bit cray, because it's actually the middle of the night there. So I'm not really sure what's happened, but it's a low of 9 degrees and a high of 24. Let's have a look at some of the feedback coming into the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. We have Kylie Minogue. Since when is it publicised what a singer gets for an advert? That comes from TARDIS 3. We've also got this one, if I can get to my... Oh, I'm sending this one through. My mum says, agree with you, Rob. Jason Ferguson says, you are on fire today, Rob. The Doctor Who show says, typical D... Oh, I said excuse me several times. Yeah, great, buddy. Doesn't mean that if people can't hear you, they can stop. We've got this one from Chris Brown. Really enjoying the show today. First time watching. Cam says, probably what happens if digital funds were being redirected to pay for Lisa Wilkinson's salary. That's the closing of 10 Daily, but somehow I don't think so. And we've got this one from someone called Benjamin Norris who says, Rob is hilarious when he loses it. Thank you very much.
Put a muzzle on him.
Or maybe it's sunrise there. Maybe that's why the shot's there. Can we just have a look at that again, Amanda, without all the supers?
We're going live to Paris.
Maybe that's the sunrise coming up. It's just a bit overblown. Oh, love that. Early morning rise.
Beg your pardon?
Anyway, there's a lot going on in the television world, and every Monday we talk to our good friend Molk, who is bringing us up today. Good afternoon, Molk. This breaking news about Channel 10 is shocking. Just for people just joining us, bring us up to speed with what's going on.
Is that there will be redundancies at 10, starting with the shuttering of their website, 10 Daily. Now, Robbo actually broke the news here on Ben, Rob and Robbo show and has put everyone in a flurry, not least of which this guy, because I had to come up with some stuff to tell you about that story. Understandably, 10 are a little bit closed shop about this. They haven't put out a release yet. They're not talking about it, though staff from 10 Daily, including senior editor Josh Butler, have started tweeting confirming that they are indeed out of a job from Friday.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just saw this one from Tegan George. She says, devastated to read this. So many wonderful people work on 10 Daily. And as you said, Josh Butler said, sad news, 10 Daily is being closed from Friday, backing up the reporting Robbo has done today. There will be a lot of people left without jobs, news, lifestyle and entertainment journalists, editors, video editors, social staff. They're all guns. If you need people, please DM Josh, as he can recommend a few legends to hire. Robbo, what else are you hearing? Because you have been all over this story.
Well, this is the thing. It's massive news, obviously, across the media landscape that 10 Daily is going to go. We understand that at 2 p.m. today, Ross Dagan, the head of news and current affairs at Network 10, is going to address staff. I think the story is broken a little earlier than what they wanted it to, but it has. Obviously, we've got to keep saying this. Our thoughts and prayers and our love go to everyone at 10 now, because obviously 10, as Molk mentioned there, was the first one to get the axe, but the axe still looms over the entire network with more redundancies to follow. Look, I've got to say, editorially, in classic form, Bev McGarvey's email is a little bit vague, which just adds to the anxiety and things like that. She also uses the term platform agnostic.
What does that mean?
I don't even know no one knows what that means. So to put that into an email when, you know what, you're dealing with people's lives and livelihoods. A lot of people in television, as all of us can attest to this, is a passion of ours. So to have someone talk about platform agnostics and that kind of thing. It's just, there's no heart there. And a lot of people are in that building because of the heart that they have. We've got a lot of friends, more colleagues, I guess, more acquaintances. No, kidding.
Wow.
We've got a lot of people that we know and love. No, I'm kidding. A lot of people we know and love at Channel 10, and it is really terrible what they're going through. We've also reached out to Josh to see if he could comment. He probably can't, and we understand that. It's a very emotional, tough time, and he's about to hear from his boss. But we have reached out for comment from him. He was the first person to break this news. This is really tough. But Molk, obviously, this is really not this is the first acts to fall. But 7 and 9 surely are next.
Yeah, look, we've seen 7 already sort of quietly slide some people out the door with some redundancies and stuff finishing up there. 9 doing the same. They're very small for both of those networks. For this to be the shuttering of 10 Daily and possibly more, I mean, none of this is good news for the media industry in Australia. And all of this, of course, off the back of Foxtel with sizable redundancies. I think so far the running count is 270 people have lost their job at Foxtel, with at least nearly that many stood down for a period of time while they try and push through this. A diabolical moment for the Australian media industry.
And the tough thing is that 10 Daily only just started. They would have only just celebrated their 2-year anniversary on the 14th of May. They began online on the 14th of May in 2018. Sandra Sully is a big part of that. Obviously, Lisa Wilkinson is a big part of that. But they do have some really talented people, and they actually take up a sizable amount of 10's newsroom on level 3, and that will all be gone. Now, what does that do? Obviously, when people have been through redundancies, we know that. It is that when you see all these empty desks, the morale just plummets, and especially when the axe is still swinging over it, there will be zero morale. And I really feel for everyone at Channel 10,
well, Robbo,
because they're going to leave a massive space.
You and I have been there when there were redundancies, and it is a horrible experience because everyone just wonders who's next. They turn on each other, they blame each other, they blame other managers, they blame where the money's been spent, and the people, like people at 10 with this Viacom CBS merger, honestly would have thought this isn't going to happen again. And here we are. It's a bad situation. Sorry, Mark, I know you wanted to say something.
Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, and with, Ross Dagan now to talk to the troops, conveniently just after the Ben Rob and Robbo show, means that, that information and the bigger part of this story will continue to spin out. It's absolutely going to be a morale cutter within 10 at Piermont there. And it's absolutely going to put a whole bunch of people out looking for jobs at a time when it's not great to be looking for jobs. And it's only a week off the back of 10's big pitch to market about how they're agile, dynamic, the ratings are up, things are going really well for them, and that they're the under 50s network. Everyone should be turning to 10 to advertise and do all those sorts of things. It does, for me, offer a couple of big questions around the nature of McGarvey's statement around platform agnosticism if you're then going to shutter what is ostensibly your big news website.
Molk, it's interesting. I'm trying to think back to that reel. Was a big deal made about 10 Daily in that reel?
It wasn't mentioned. And
so
in retrospect, yeah, that's very telling, isn't it? Like 10 Play. 10 All Access, barely mentioned.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. And then, of course, there are going to be questions about what else happens, what's going to be gone, what programs, everyone who works on a show will go back to that reel and look, were we mentioned that much? Did we get a good Guernsey? And I can think of some shows that didn't. But I do not want to fuel any speculation on that.
Yes.
The other thing, Molk, we should mention is that we will have reports on tvblackbox.com.au once the Ben, Rob and Robbo show finishes. And we are recording a brand new episode of TV Black Box, the podcast. This is the podcast people in the industry go to for their news. So we will have all the very latest developments. That will be in your podcast feed later tonight or when you wake up tomorrow morning. So there's lots to get across with this story. This is a big breaking story, and we will continue to bring it to you. But meanwhile, Molk, while we have you, let's talk about the Channel 7 executive who duped millions out of Channel 7.
Yeah, look, this is a huge story. It broke, I think nearly 2 years ago when John Fitzgerald was arrested for fraud after working at 7. A high-level commercial manager within the network had, let's call it misappropriated, $8 million. Just pocket change, really. Certainly to his credit, when he was investigators stepped in and those sorts of things, obviously he was stood down. He fessed up, gave them all of the spreadsheets and the stuff that showed how that had happened, and pled guilty when facing court. The judge very, very harsh in saying that they wanted to make sure that white-collar crime got a very clear message today, and so he was sentenced to 5 years in prison with a possible parole after 3. Now, sure, he's not going to go to hard jail, but it's still prison, and this is a very clear message to him and anyone else that might be doing those sorts of things. And it does cast some questions around the executive culture for Seven at the time that $8 million went missing and kind of no one missed it for a while.
Amazing.
Exactly right, Molk. Now, you spoke before about Foxtel and the dire dramas they're going through, but they're actually going to put all of their hope in a new streaming service. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, are you ready for 7 days of absolute crazy news around Foxtel? Just this morning, Kevin Perry dropped a great story about what has been titled Project Aries on TV Black Box, the background drama streaming service that, as far as we understand, is going to be called Binge. Now, in contacting Foxtel today, there's a media briefing on Friday. More details will come out this Saturday, and it launches next Monday. Now, that is an insanely short turnaround time, of course, fresh off the back of them doing the deal with Warner Media that secures all the HBO content. The home of HBO in Australia is Foxtel, and HBO Max, effectively keeping it out of the Australian landscape so that Binge and Foxtel can take our dollars.
And Molk, there's a long-running show coming to an end.
Yeah, this was big news. Well done to Aaron Ryan on the TV Black Box website for bringing our attention to the fact that The Force, the long-running reality obdoc that focused on the West Australian and I'm going to say it was New South Wales police forces, mixed up, just following cops around them doing their job and what it meant. And look, it has come to an end. This final episode kept under wraps for some time because of some legal issue around a case within the show, but it will air now finally. That's got to a place where they can, and that will be the end of it.
It's interesting, Molk. Dan Meenan was the creator of this show. He no longer works at Seven. He was head of Factual at the time. He did an amazing job bringing this show and border security to light. And it is an amazing run. To get 15 seasons out of a show is an extraordinary run.
Oh, huge. And look, that border security, the Force double that Seven would run for an hour, always rated well for them when they kept it together, usually on Tuesday or Wednesday nights, depending on where and how that fits in your local schedule. The other part of that, and you're right on that 15 seasons, is that the work with the police forces in those states, the police services, to be able to keep the access that they did to follow working men and women in uniform around while they did their job, not only provided a great opportunity and a bit of a PR boost around here's people doing a really tough job, a really good job, but also meant that lots of people became interested and wanted to sign up.
Molk, your insight is fantastic. I look forward to hearing you on tonight's/tomorrow's TV Black Box podcast.
Stop it.
And don't forget, you can also hear Molk on the TV Binge Box podcast, where they look at shows and review shows and give you great ideas of shows you can watch. Molk, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Our 10th anniversary spectacular this week, 10th episode for TV Binge Box.
Hey, look, they said you'd never make it, and look at what you've done. 10 whole episodes. Congratulations, my friend.
Thanks,
Molk.
I tell you what, guys, what a big show with a lot going on as far as that news out of 10. We will obviously keep across that. Robbo, has there been any more developments coming in while we've been talking to Molk?
No more developments. We obviously are waiting for Ross Dagan, the news head there, to talk to the staff about what's happened there. We did reach out to Josh Butler, who first broke that. He's the senior reporter at 10 Daily. He was very nice and he said, thank you for the kind words, but not at this stage. He can't talk about it yet because obviously in 2 minutes, Ross Dagan will be addressing staff and letting them know, hopefully more detail than what was in Bev McGarvey's very vague, very robotic email there. We certainly hope that there's more direction and there's more focus on what will happen to the staff at 10. Our thoughts and prayers really, and that's such a silly statement to make, but it really is. It's important. It sucks to lose your job.
These are people's lives.
Yeah,
and
passion as well, and passion.
Sorry, I've just got an email coming through from Channel 10. I just want to make sure what it is before I read it out. I have a statement from Channel 10.
Correct.
Network 10's digital media strategy is evolving to capitalise on our momentum and match the new Viacom CBS global operating model. This means an increased emphasis on streaming services and social media. Over the past 2 years, 10 Daily has established a strong presence and a loyal following, thanks to a passionate and hard-working team producing great content. We are grateful for their efforts to drive that success. As a result of the strategic change, however, 10 Daily will cease to exist as a standalone website. Some of the 10 Daily roles will remain. Some of the 10 Daily content will also transfer to 10 Play and our social media brands. And I've got a statement from a Channel 10 spokesperson. Following the introduction of March this year of the new executive structure for Network 10 and Viacom CBS Australia and New Zealand, these changes are the next step in the integration of two businesses and the establishment of a combined company that reflects the new global Viacom CBS operating model. Look, I'm going to put that whole statement, because there is more, up on the TV Black Box website. As soon as we get off air, we will bring you all that. Robbo, great work today covering this breaking news. Ben, thank you. I'm sorry we didn't have time for entertainment today, but I'm sure you'll have a gangbusters entertainment segment for us tomorrow. But that does bring us to the end of the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. We will see you tomorrow.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo show.